All right, welcome to Shut the Fuck Up and Listen. This is another solo episode, and this might be the most important episode you've ever heard up until this point, because what I'm going to do today is I'm actually going to take one of the modules out of the, 45 modules, like sub-lessons out of the Better Husband Academy, and I'm going to teach it to you today, and it's going to be one of the most important ones that you can ever learn. And I keep seeing this come up over and over and over again with men. I'm going to teach you the 8 major unmet needs that our wives have, the things beneath the things. I'll teach you about what that means in just a second. But this is probably going to be something that is, if you're a casual listener of Shut the Fuck Up and Listen, like, you'll be like, holy shit, this is a revolution. If you're an avid listener, like, I think this is going to be the one that moves the needle, because here we can actionably learn how to reconfigure conversations, fights, because we're not going to look at fights and conversations from the same lens ever again once we understand what the 8 major unmet needs are of our wives. So, before we get into that, what the fuck is an unmet need? So, almost everything that shows up in a relationship, or every conflict that comes up from your wife, let's say, is going to be an unmet, it's going to come from, like, the inciting incident or the thing that, it brings it up. The reason why you're fighting is because of an unmet need or a trauma or trigger response from your wife, okay? Often the two go hand in hand. Sometimes an unmet need of her might actually, an unmet need that she needs from you, right, is going to trigger something from her past. So they can go hand in hand here, and sometimes they're really hard to separate. That's why I like to bring them up both at the same time. But the first thing I want to say is that these are a part of your wife, full stop, okay? Some of these are going to be hers to work on, and some are required of you. Some simply need to be known and accepted. So what is an unmet need? I'll go back to the same question. An unmet need is something your partner needed consistently, didn't receive consistently, and eventually stopped asking for, or maybe even still is asking for, okay? This is important. Unmet needs are not about personality. They are about behavior over time. Behavior over time. One of the things I always teach in the academy, one of the things I teach in my coaching is that we are not our behaviors. We are not our behaviors. So if you are being criticized by your wife for anything, it's not because you are a bad person, it's because you have done a bad behavior. That is it's like a very distinct thing, because one of the major drawbacks you get as a man is when your wife starts giving you feedback, you start going, I'm fucking worthless. What is the point of this whole thing? And you start moving away from team thinking and moving away from into you versus me thinking. So a behavior that happens over time. So this is not who you are, it's what you do or don't do consistently. So when an unmet need gets, when unmet needs get misunderstood as personality flaws, men shut down or get defensive. And when they're seen as behavior patterns, they become workable. That's the whole point here, right? That's the reason why I'm going to tell you these major 8 unmet needs, so that they are workable for you. Most of the reason why we're doing this is that most of the resentment, distance, or tension in a marriage points back to a small number of unmet needs. So, to be a better husband, you have to stop looking at the chore and start looking at the relational signal. Okay, so when she's upset, she isn't just complaining about a task, she's protesting the thing underneath the thing. So sometimes you'll see me in social media always talk about the thing underneath the thing, the thing underneath the thing. So this is exactly what we're going to talk about today. And sometimes your wife is not going to be able to articulate this. Sometimes she is, and sometimes she'll be saying it to you over and over again, but you're hearing me say it for the first time and you're going, oh shit, she's not fucking crazy. No, she's not crazy. These are unmet needs, okay? The thing underneath the thing is an unmet need. It's what she's actually upset about. So let's put it this way. An example that I always have, and we're going to use it probably a little bit later on in this podcast episode, is that sometimes if your wife says, can you stop being on your phone? You might be like, looking at the actual flesh level, argument of going, why do you want me off my phone right now? It's been a busy day. I just want to veg out for 20 minutes. Is that okay? And plus, you were always on your phone. Why are you telling me to stop being on my phone? I see you on your phone. There's nothing wrong with the phone. Okay, you're arguing about the thing, right? But what's the thing underneath the thing? What's the unmet need? Because here's the thing. What you're doing is you're going to argue about this, the phone, you're going to get really logical about this, and you might even win. You might even win the argument all the way down and beat your fucking wife all the way to the point where you get to, you know what, her saying, I'm sorry, you're allowed to use your phone. But then you have a broken wife because you've actually not uncovered what she was upset about in the fucking first place. This is the place that we have to get to. Now, again, you might say, but I just want my wife to articulate that better. She's not sometimes going to be able to articulate that. Just like you don't articulate everything that goes in your brain. We're really difficult to articulate these things because it requires a lot of work from us to know about ourselves and everything like that. Plus, it's not expedient to expect that from your wife just so that you can have change, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I'm going to help you out and let's get to the core of what the top 8 unmet needs are. And in that example, your wife was not talking about the phone. She was talking about connection. She was talking about maybe presence. Maybe she just wanted you in the room with her, right? So let's get to the top 8 unmet needs. Number 1, we've just touched on it, is connection. The need to feel like your partner, not just your roommate. So make sure you got the pen and paper ready. Let's look at these. So let's look at that first example. You're on your phone while she's trying to tell you about a conflict she had with a friend, right? If she tells you, can you get off your phone? Don't argue about the fucking phone, right? Look underneath it and see where she's trying to come from. Does she want to connect with me right now? Does she really just want connection, right? Maybe that can come up when you stop asking her deep questions because you already know everything about her. Yeah, that might trigger this need for, this unmet need for connection. Another one that sometimes triggers this unmet need for connection is physical touch only happens when you want it to lead to the bedroom, right? Why do you think women they need connection? This is like a huge need for women. And often men, we're just like, let's just get straight into sex, right? Because men, we have an internal drive of like release. We just want to release. We want everything to be peaceful. We want peace and release and all of this, right? And so that's why we want to get really quick into sex. Whereas women actually, they kind of need connection first because and this will touch into another unmet need a little bit later on about safety. But the thing is, connection's such a huge part for women. So if you're only touching her when you want to lead to the bedroom and then she argues about touch, don't argue about, but I always touch you or I touch you this time and this time and this time. That's arguing about the thing above the thing. We want to go the thing underneath the thing. You're looking for connection. And then you can find your own way to give her connection, something that works for the both of you. Another example when connection goes unnoticed is you don't notice when she changes her hair or buys a new dress or looks tired. Now she can come in hot and she can say, you didn't notice my hair. And then you can get lawyery and say, but I noticed your hair on January 17th. And she'll be like, I don't get you. And then you fight about that. For fuck's sake, what is the thing underneath the thing? She wants to connect with you in that moment. Drop all types of defense and just fucking connect. All right. Yeah, there's another one of connection, which is like you stop dating her or giving effort, right? Because you've already won the prize, so to speak. Go back, freaking look at the unmet need. And she might say, but, we don't date often. And you're like, but we dated again on January 17th. I don't know why I keep bringing up the fucking date of January 17th, but I think you get my point here. Don't get into lawyer mode about the thing above the thing. Get underneath the thing and go for connection. That's the biggest one. Well, these unmet needs are in no particular order, so it's not the biggest one. Anyway, that's one of the major 8. Let's go into number 2 of the major 8. Priority. Now, when I'm teaching my Better Husband Academy, I do a whole freaking section on priority because priority is like huge. But I'm going to say it just briefly here. If you're listening to the show, you're already asking the right question. How do I show up better? Maybe things feel harder than they should at home. Maybe you know something needs to shift, but you're just not sure where to start. Here's what I know. You're not lazy, you're not broken, you just never got the manual. Nobody teaches men how to be husbands. Nobody shows you how to navigate the hard conversations, regulate your emotions, or turn your marriage into an actual team. That's why I created Better Husband in 2-Minute Emails. It's one email every Saturday morning with one tool you can use that week. There's no therapy speak, no blame, just the skills that actually move the needle. 2 minutes, one Saturday morning, that's your entry point. Because 3 months of focused work beats 20 years repeating the same damn pattern. Links in the show notes. First email lands this Saturday. This is a need from your wife to know that she comes before your boss, your mother, and your hobbies. So, for example, priority might be triggered when you stay late at work for a non-urgent task, when you promise that you would be home for dinner. And then she says, you care more about work than me, okay? That is priority. It's like, one of the things I want to say about priority is like really big here. You can argue about like, how much time you spend at work versus how much time you spend with your wife, or how much you've given up for your wife versus work or whatever. But the thing here, it might not seem logical to you as a man, but the wives want to feel like they want to feel like they are thought of within your world, like they actually matter to you more than the other things in your life. Now, when you get hit with a wife saying that you are not they are not a priority to you, it might actually take you back, because in your mind you're like, of course they're a priority for me. Like, of course, like this is a fucking of course. But I would like you to look at for this specific unmet need, I would like you to look at your behaviors and the patterns of your behavior and how much time you spend in certain places, presently spend in certain places. Because if you're always present at work, but then you're not present at home and need to veg out, it is subconsciously telling your wife that you prefer to be at work than you prefer to be with her. It's the same as when, let's say, you get into an argument in public and you're more concerned about how everyone else is going to view you too versus your wife's feelings, right? What does that do? It actually shows her that you care more about the outside world and their opinions than you do about her. Now, that might not to you as a man be actually logical, because you're like, well, I'm fighting about this, and well, how the fuck does that come into it? But that's how it feels for a woman. So regardless of I'm just here being a translator. You can say that this is right or wrong. I don't really give a shit about right or wrong. I just really want to get to a point where you two are in a really good relationship and a good marriage. And that's only going to happen when you understand the fucking rules of the game. She is different to you, and she's going to feel like she is not prioritized. So don't fight about the thing above the thing, fight about the thing underneath the thing. At least that way you'll get to a better place. Priority is number 2. Number 3, overload. This is unmet need number 3. The need for you to shoulder the mental load of running a life together. So if you're always asking, what do you want me to do, instead of scanning the room and just fucking doing this, then, well, there you go. That's going to trigger overload. You leave your dishes in the sink expecting the cleaning fairy to handle them. I saw this really funny reel, which is not that funny for women. It's very funny for men, because if you look at it, you go, oh God, I've been guilty of this. So women have a lot more forethought than men. This is one of the things that I love from Dr. Amen. One of his studies about 40,000 brains, seeing that women have a lot of forethought. And so it means that women tend to think ahead of the next situation and everything. And there's this reel where, I don't know how it starts, but the man sort of says to his wife that he can leave some dishes on the table, and his wife's like, why? And he's like, well, okay, maybe I'll tell you about this, but on the table there's a cleaning fairy. And if you put all the dishes on the table, eventually, he didn't know why, but all the dishes will just go and get cleaned. Isn't that remarkable? And maybe she should try it too. And so I found that really funny. But often we as men, because we don't have this forethought, sometimes we literally just don't think of the amount of work that goes in. There is no fucking cleaning fairy, by the way. If you're a slow man out there, I hate to call you out on this, but there is no cleaning fairy. There is no magically disappearing. Your wife's doing it. Your wife is fucking doing it. Now, what's required within that is to not veg out for her. She actually doesn't have that time. She needs to clean. And then probably the kids are going to make it dirty again in a moment. And she's having to think about all of these things over and over again. It's adding to mental load and overload. She gets overloaded while you're just going what the hell? And so here's the thing. Then she might say to you, here's where unmet needs come into this, and where the thing underneath the thing versus the thing above the thing comes into this. You're leaving your dishes in the sink. She comes in really fucking hot with, why the fuck are your dishes in the sink? And you might feel that her reaction to it is disproportionate to the action. Right? So you're like, but it's just a dish here, and I was on my way to clean it in 10 minutes, but I don't have time right now. Why are you being on my case? Right? And you might be really hot. You might be both fighting on this, but that is the thing above the thing. The thing underneath the thing is that she's fucking overloaded. right? Do we understand that? That is the difference here. When you're above the thing, it's you're going to argue about the dishes at that time and why are you so hot on talking about this right now to me because I'm just about to leave the house or I've been busy too today. She's not talking about that. She's talking about the pattern of the unmet need that she's been overloaded this whole time, and it might come into some other unmet needs here about your presence, your initiative, your follow through as well. But we'll get to those in due time. Overload. Have a look if she's overloaded. Here we go. We're going to get into the meat and potatoes of the unmet needs. We've got security. Security. So this is one that I think most men don't understand, really don't understand. A wife needs to feel that the walls of a marriage are solid. A man doesn't necessarily feel this. Now, I'm not 100% an expert on the whys of this. I'm really good at translating it and seeing the patterns. That's what I'm fucking good at. But the why of this, I have theories. I believe, women are more vulnerable. I believe that women societally have been given a fucking harder go. I believe that hormonally, women don't have a lot of stability within their hormones. And a lot of women, especially the wives of some of the men that I coach, like they have very unstable hormone patterns, right? They can't rely on themselves half the fucking time because of how hormones rush through them. And then let's not mention perimenopause, let's not mention pregnancy, let's not mention period. Every one of these changes the emotional state of a woman. So I believe that vulnerability comes a lot more for women. And if you followed me for a while, you probably know that I have a big disdain for the world treating men and women exactly the same because they're not fucking the same, right? And women and men are different. And so women are going to be more vulnerable in this case. And this is why as a man, you will not understand security as much as you think. And when a wife says, I don't feel safe around you, you're going, fuck you, because I have provided this. I've built the money for this. I've done this. But you're not understanding that she feels like she might be feeling freaking overloaded with everything in life. And that doesn't make her feel safe. If you're passive, she has to do more. If she has to do more, her nervous system's on high fucking alert. And if her nervous system's on high fucking alert, she doesn't feel safe, right? So that's the thing. That's the thing. So security is an unmet need, and I talk about it emotionally and I talk about it financially. So let's say, here we go. You shut down or give the silent treatment when she brings up a hard topic, okay? Now, that might trigger security for her. She might not feel safe, right? She might not feel safe. You shut down or give the silent treatment when she tries to bring up a hard topic. And then she's going to talk about, why can't we talk about hard topics? Because I need to feel that we can talk about hard things. Otherwise, I don't feel safe. And you're going to get defensive and start talking about how that specific hard topic at that time was. That's the thing above the thing. The thing underneath the thing is talking about her security, right? So it's much more beneficial to go underneath the thing and look at security and go, how can I make her feel safe right now? How can we be safe right now? So let's say you make a large investment or a purchase without consulting her first, and then you're arguing about the purchase, and you're like, but last time it was safe to do a purchase, now it's not, and then you're arguing about that specific moment. That's the thing above the thing. The thing underneath the thing is the security, right? Emotionally or financially, okay? You act flippant about a debt or a financial goal that she's deeply worried about. The moment you do that, she's going to feel more vulnerable, and then you're going to fight about whether she's being logical or not at that specific moment. No, fucking get underneath the thing. Notice that she has an unmet need for security. If you are fighting about flesh level things above the things, look underneath. Security is a huge one. Another big one, we're going to go into the world of passivity here. And this is the unmet need for initiative. Initiative is a huge, huge unmet need for women. They need to have men that take initiative. Because if you don't take initiative, one, you're going to, trigger security, and you're going to also trigger overload. So I put it separately because I think it's actionable for men to have it separately. So you can look at it separately. But anyway, so what is the need? It's the need for a leader who anticipates, not just a follower who executes. Now, the reason I put it like that, and I think some men and women get a little bit fucking hung up with the word lead. I don't want a leader, I want an equal partner. Of course, but you do want a leader. You want somebody who leads their own life. You want somebody who can fucking make decisions on their own. That is what I call a leader, right? Now, it doesn't have to be somebody that is and this is the shit that we have in our society, where we look at men as the worst version of men, which is a contributor for why we have such fucking passive men. Because the moment we say a man that is a leader, we have to preface it by saying, but I don't want a man that is a jerk. And it's like, no, for fuck's sake, the base level of man is not a bad thing. The extremes of man is a bad thing. Because the moment we start saying that the base level of man is a bad thing, then we have men that don't want to be men. And then we go backwards, right? That's why we get passive, nice fucking jelly men in the first place. We need men with spines, but we're only going to get men with spines if we don't demonize all of men. Right, so I have a big part. You can see I get passionate about this. I once had I started the men's group in Mallorca, and one day one man was like, "Why did you call it the Mallorca Men's Club?" Like as soon as I hear that, I just think of strippers and I think of strippers and like gambling and alcohol. And all the men laughed, and I stopped, and I was like, "How is this fucking funny? How is this funny? How is it a group of men, right?" How is a group of men a bad thing? Why is that thought of as the lowest version of what a man can be, as just the baseline? So we need to change that. Now, how do we change that? A woman needs a man who is a leader within himself, who can anticipate things, not just a follower or a boy that waits on orders or an employee that waits on orders. So this is a deep unmet need for women, but it's also secretly, men, it's an unmet need for yourself too, because this is what gives you fucking confidence. This is what gives you confidence within your life. So let's say you wait for her to tell you that the car needs an oil change, even though that the light is on. So you might then argue about, but I didn't like the light was only on for like 5 minutes. Like, why are you on my case with it? And then you're arguing about the timing of the fucking light. And then you're arguing about whether the light actually meant that the oil needed changed. Or you're arguing about the situations within the day. That's the thing above the thing. What is she actually upset about? You didn't fucking take initiative. There we go. Now let's look at another one. You see that the trash is full, but you wait for her to ask you to take it out. I'm fucking guilty of this. Often I'm in my head with it. Now, does it mean that I'm a bad man? No, it's just sometimes if you make a mistake, you own it, you go do it. But the thing is, when you see the trash is full and you wait for her to ask you to take it out, and then you're going to argue about how full the trash is, you're going to argue about the bin night, you're going to argue about all of this bullshit, that is not the problem. The problem is the thing underneath the thing, is that you don't take initiative, and usually you're only arguing about that when it's become enough of a problem that she's pissed off at really simple things. That is when the pattern has gotten so big that you need to address it earlier. Great, let's get to the next one, which is presence. Ironically, if you deal with presence as an unmet need, you get better at the rest of these. So this is a really good one. The need for your mind and soul to be in the same room as your body. Your wife needs that from you. If you're physically on the couch, but your mind is 100% on your fantasy football team and you're just going, yep, honey, then she might argue with you and go like, but I want you to do less fantasy football. And then you're trying to argue about the merits of fantasy football. And you're trying to, that's the thing above the thing underneath the thing. She just wants some fucking time with you, just with you, without you thinking about or being in your head all the time. Right? Done. That one's easy. But it's easy to say, harder to do, okay? Yeah, interestingly, there's even one like sometimes you don't make eye contact when she's speaking to you. Like, these are things where, you know, it might be hard. Maybe you have some like social anxiety or something like that. Maybe you don't like directly looking in somebody's eyes or whatever. But the unmet need here is a bit of connection, but it's presence. So a really good way to get the thing underneath the thing for all of this is to go, how do I be where my feet are? How do I be where my feet are? How do I be where my feet are? We've only got 2 more major unmet needs, but they're big. They're really big. Here we got follow through. This is really close to initiative, but it's the need of your wife to believe that your yes means yes. Your yes means yes. Because how the fuck can she get to trust If your yes means no, if your yes means maybe, if your yes means later, if your yes means in 10 years, right? So let's say you promised to call the plumber on Monday. It's now Thursday and you forgot. She comes in hot. She goes, you didn't fucking call the plumber. You're a worthless sack of shit of a man. Yes, that's an extreme reaction, right? And it's an extreme pain and tone, right? But what is the thing underneath the thing? What is the fucking thing underneath the thing? It's been probably years where you said you were going to do something, but you didn't. And that's where that fuel and pain and tone comes from. It's not coming from a vacuum, and you can't now sit and go, oh, but honey, just treat me a little bit nicer quickly, right? I get that every relationship needs good tones in that, but first, deal with the thing underneath the thing. Then you can talk about, hey, but when we're in a relationship, a team relationship is actually one where we can respect each other. So I'm going to work on my shit and make sure I'm dealing with these unmet needs. And on the other side of this, I'm going to make sure, like, we need to make sure as a relationship that we never get to a bad point where we're talking to each other at that, like, level. Do you agree on that? And she's going to say, yes, I don't want to fucking talk to you like you're a child, but I feel like I have to when your yes means no, when your yes means maybe, and when your yes means later. All right? Hope that makes sense. It's every time you say you'll handle it, but she knows that she'll have to remind you 3 more times. Follow through, follow through, follow through. You know, men will often want to go and buy a woman 1,000,000 roses. They would rather buy a woman 1,000,000 roses than do what they said that they were going to do. Just do what you said you were going to do. That is follow through. That's all she's asking for. And in actual fact, like, marriage is so much easier than you think if you just fucking follow these unmet needs, because straight away you don't have to go and buy 1,000,000,000 roses. You just have to do what you said you were going to do. It's actually, the bar is not even that high. I think women probably could have a higher fucking bar, right? But if you do what you say you're going to do, you have presence, you have initiative, you have security, you're like not causing overload by not thinking. You actually have her as a priority in your life, not like low, and you build connection. Those are the major things, which leads to the last one, the last of the top 8 unmet needs that I see over and over again. Trust. The need for total transparency so she can rest her heart in your hands. So trust is big, but trust also gets lost if you keep those 7 before this away. But there's also another one here, like half lying to try and protect yourself and to protect your feelings and emotions because her emotions are too big. Half lying and saying, like, I gave an example in one of my emails, which I think was a really good one. When your wife asks you, have you locked the doors, right? Have you locked the doors? And you will then, instead of owning the fact that you didn't lock the doors or just saying, hey, look, I wasn't present, and I completely forgot about it. I want to work on that and make sure that I don't do that again, right? That's the truth. That's the full truth, right? But you will tell her a half truth, which is actually, but we're actually in a safe neighborhood. Why do I need to lock the doors? Like, there's no real reason to lock the doors. Now, you might believe that. You might never voice that. And you're only bringing that out now to save your fucking skin, right? But the problem is that is a half lie because you're missing the other part. You're missing the other part. The other part is just making sure that you do it. We're live for Shut the Fuck Up and Listen, but I see a comment just came in on the Instagram, which was, I was waiting for accountability. Is that part of one of the others? It's how we deal with all of these, which is going to go to the last bit, accountability and ownership. So the only way to move forward with unmet needs is to own ownership. It's, yes, it might be a need of your wife, but I actually look at it as a solution to all of these unmet needs. It is to own your shit, right? That is it. So I hope you really enjoyed this deep dive. Well, okay, before we jump off, I just want to say that last little bit of trust. Also, if you've broken trust in the past, okay, it takes a little while it takes consistent patterns of the opposite behavior to rebuild this. If you've done years of any of these unmet needs in one direction, you might need to do at least months to go back in the other direction of patterns. So do not think about the thing above the thing, think about the thing underneath the thing, and that should help your next argument. That was Shut the Fuck Up and Listen. This was one of the modules I had in the Better Husband Academy, module 1.4. The next time the Academy opens up is in May. Can't wait to see you guys there when that opens up the next time. That's the episode. That's all I got for you today. I just want you to remember you're not alone in this. Make sure you subscribe to stay connected, of course, and comment your win, because every time a man sees other men winning, they don't feel alone anymore, and I love that. Tools are in the show notes, starting with the Better Husband in 2-minute emails. Let's build this together. I'll see you next week.